So, um, we often blame the day, like you were saying. Some days I can do this, and some days I can't do it. And it's not the day; it's your attitude in that moment.
Yes. Yes.
And in fact, it doesn't even last a day.
Mm-hmm.
Your attitude can change. And the best part about it is that you can intentionally change your attitude.
Yes. Yes.
That's the whole point. This is the Buddha's model is a change model. And so instead of blaming the day and saying, oh, some days I can do it and oh, some days I can't, you can change that attitude right then and there and says, I can do it now. I can do it right now. And then we come back and do it right now. Okay. Now there's many different possibilities that we're not looking at. One would be, for instance, how much caffeine that we have, how much coffee that we have drunk, because that tends to, let us say, keep the mind activated. And another way of saying it is that that's what um, is one of the conditions for having a monkey mind. That the monkey mind will jump and jump and jump. And when the mind is jumping around, then you can say, oh, poor me, this is a bad day. And you
Yes.
blame the day on it, to where, in fact, this is actually a really excellent time to practice. When the
Yes.
mind is jumping, you keep grabbing it and bringing it back. And then it jumps
Yes.
again, and you grab it and you bring it back. And getting
Yes.
into the habit of seizing the moment, seizing the mind.
Yes.
Okay, there's another point about that, and that is oftentimes people have anxiety without
Yes.
even labeling it correctly. And that the best way to identify anxiety is that there's an uncomfortable feeling in the body. A
Yes.
feeling of tightness of the chest is a good example of that. And that the best way to deal with that then is with the breath.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
remembering to start taking long, deep breaths while you're talking about um, the attitude change, like, I can settle down, I can handle this. And then we watch that tightness in the chest dissipate. I talk about it often, but I want to make sure that the students understand that we should be looking for that tension in the chest. And
Yes.
the reason for this is because when we're not paying attention to the tensions in the chest or the tensions in the body, we respond or we react to those tensions subconsciously. What I mean by subconsciously is that we're doing things that we're not paying attention to. They've coined the word subconscious, which
Yes.
actually means that it is conscious, but it's not present at the fore,
Oh.
right in front of us.
Yes.
Okay. An example of that would be that someone will have the feeling in the stomach of hunger, and instead of recognizing that's a hungry feeling, they find themselves in front of the refrigerator without even experiencing the fact that they felt hungry. But the hunger drove them to get up and go to the refrigerator and start rummaging through the refrigerator without actually acknowledging that sensation of hunger.
Yes. 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 It makes so much sense.
Or we'll grab something to eat instead of, if we can acknowledge that sensation of hunger and say, that is a hungry feeling. And like in my state or condition, someone will be bringing food within the hour or two, and therefore I do not have to go do anything about it. I can just acknowledge that hunger and leave it as hunger, just as a sensation. Okay. But the
Yes.
more predominant one, or let us say the one that occurs for so many people more frequently, is that feeling of something's not right. Something is just not right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that the example that I would have just happened is that the Social Security checks are done on the third.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and often the money is in the bank by the fourth. Well, today is the sixth, and the money has not shown up yet. And I checked that earlier, and then 15 minutes later, I noticed that tension in the chest. And so I take the time to breathe that out and say everything is going to be okay. I can miss a month. Social Security will catch up. There's really no problem at all. Someday I'll connect with Social Security if there's a problem, but it's okay that it's late. Okay, and those are the kind of thoughts to have while breathing in and breathing out to breathe out that tension.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that heaviness in the chest. And so the thought that we had may have been 5 or 10 minutes ago, and that it's only now that we begin to recognize that tension.
Yes.
But what can happen instead of recognizing the tension, we start to worry. And then we don't even know what we're worried about
Yes.
because we've forgotten all about the fact that the check is late. But
Mhm.
now we're in a state of anxiety.
Yes.
Okay, so this is why we have to start paying attention to
Mhm.
the kind of thoughts that we have so that we'll remember, oh, yeah, I was just thinking about the check being late, and now I'm in a state of having chest tensions.
Yes.
And I can tell myself everything's going to be okay, everything is fine, and I can breathe in and out, and that tension will dissolve itself. And then we can go back into a state of sabai, sabai. Now, that's a Thai word, but what it really means is everything's okay, everything is relaxed. I'm not under pressure.
Yes.
That in fact, that being under pressure or being in a state of stress is actually experienced as that kind of tightness or heaviness in the chest. And when it gets really heavy, we call it anxiety. And when it really takes over is when we call it panic.
Yes.
And we don't have to let it get to the panic step. There's no reason for it to get that far. We need to wake up and see what's going on and start taking those deep breaths early so that we can relax the body. So this is the part of anapanasati that it's step 3 of knowing the body. If any tensions or any anxieties or any stress or any hungers or any sadness or anything like that that shows up, it'll show up in the body. Pay attention to that.
Yes. Um, it also sounds like I've been thinking of this idea that negative thoughts, if I have negative thoughts, most of the time is because I'm not being present. I'm not sure because usually the negative is I'm thinking about the future, I'm thinking about the past. I'm just wondering from a Buddhist point of view, is negative thinking means that we are not in the present and something like that. But what I tend to, I mean, this past few days, when I try to investigate myself, I think that's the case. Not being present. So I think there's no direct answer to this, right?
Mm-hmm. That this is what the practice is really all about, is to remember to check things out, to remember to
Yes.
keep checking things out, to check out the body, to check out our feelings, to check out what the mind state is, and to check out what we're kind of thinking about.
Yes.
And pretty
Yes.
soon we get into the habit of keeping checking things out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when we get into that habit of checking things out, we also begin to get in the habit of changing things so that things come back to a nice state.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And now one thing that I'd like to mention is that, and this is in the Konsambian Sutta number 48. You might want to read that sutta.
Okay.
That there's a general introduction about the Konsambians, and then it gets into the definition of, they're using in this particular translation the word obstructions.
Oh, sure.
Now, obstructions are actually the same thing as hindrances. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Um, and a hindrance or an obstruction is very much like a door sill. Do you know what a door sill is?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, often you have to step up. Now, if you know that and you can see it on a regular basis, and every time you walk through the door you have to step up on that door sill, then there's no trouble. But people
Oh,
are constantly falling down, face down, because they're not watching that obstruction,
yes. Yes.
that small little step, or that indention or change in the floor. Now, on
Yes.
our particular house, it's actually, that obstruction is big enough to be a step,
I see.
about 3 inches. And I have seen people, funny, they live in the house and they'll fall over that step. All right. But if we are careful of this, then we begin to get the attitude,
Yes.
and it's an attitude now that's deep seated. Okay. And the way that I would state it as an example is that I can step over that sill
Yes.
and enter the room without any trouble. And it
Yes.
is so natural that it's not even a thought, it's just
Yes.
an attitude.
Yes.
Okay. And that we want to develop the attitude in general that whatever obstruction is there, and the sutta talks about it, no matter how obstructed the mind is, we can, in fact, overcome that. We can step over that step. We can step over that sill and enter the room correctly. All right.
Yes.
Now, this is an important knowledge. In fact, this is the first knowledge. And the way that it's stated is, no matter how obstructed the mind is, I can clean that out and see things the way they are, to see the truth, to see the reality of things. Now, the Buddha says that this is the first knowledge, and then he says that this is a knowledge that is noble, that this knowledge is, in fact, a factor of the path, that this is much of the Eightfold Noble Path. This is a path factor. And then he points out also that this is a state of mind or a knowledge that very few people have. The ordinary people don't have this knowledge.
Yes.
Why? Because they get obstructed, they get in the hindrances, and then they wind up feeling bad. Okay? And so going back then to that tightness in the chest, that instead of getting into a panic or worry or anything like that, we can see that tightness in the chest and say, oh, I know exactly what to do with that.
Yes.
I know exactly what to do with it. And this is what puts us on the path of the Dhamma, is that knowledge that I can do this. No matter how obstructed the mind gets, I can overcome it. I
Yes.
can overcome that obstruction.
Yes.
Whether the obstruction is a tightness in the chest, it's hunger, it's sadness, it's worry, whatever issue it is. And this is, in fact, an important point in that sutta, is that this is the first step. Now, what we mean by that is that have you ever heard of the word sotapan or stream entry?
Oh, yes, yes, I do.
Okay, this is the first step of stream entry.
Yes.
The first step, that in fact it's broken into two groups. There's two kinds of stream entry. One is the stepping into the stream, and then the other one is having the fruit.
Fruit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I'll use an example, and the example comes out of a cowboy movie where this cowboy comes across a woman who has a child that's about 6 or 7 years old. And the cowboy says, why don't you go get to that thing that just fell into the river? And the child says, I can't swim. The cowboy picked that kid up and threw him in the river immediately. And while the child was doing like this, he was saying, look, you can swim.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So that first step is that I'm not going to drown. I can swim. Ordinary people go ahead and drown.
Yes.
Okay, they go under the surface to where having that knowledge of the obstruction, I am obstructed, we can start to dog paddle. We can start to swim. And then later, we are so confident that we can actually float on our back. We can do the
Yes.
backstroke. We can do the breaststroke. We can swim. And this is the fruit then of the sotapan, is being in the stream and being comfortable and happy there rather than in the stream and struggling.
Yes.
But the first thing is that we have to jump in. And that first jumping in is the knowledge of, I'm not going to drown. I can handle this. I can do this. That's the first knowledge, is that confidence that this is not going to get me.
Yes.
No matter how obstruction, no matter how deep the water is, I'm not going to drown.
It's so interesting because I had a feeling if I hear this months ago, I wouldn't be able to receive it. I feel like my mind would be so stubborn that it says, no, this is not possible. But for some reason, I'm hearing it today, right now. It's like there's no, I don't feel any hindrance coming out. It's just like, yeah, I see it. I have no idea why.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're doing, is we're developing the confidence that whatever has happened, it's not going to get me. Whatever is happening, I'm not going to drown in it.
Yes.
Whatever is happening, I can overcome that.
Yes.
Okay. And so
Yes.
when you come and say things like that, on some days I can do it and then other days I can't, that means that on some days you can dog paddle and on other days you can't, that you drown. And the answer is, don't drown. You can remember that yesterday I didn't drown, so
Yes.
today I'm not going to drown.
Yes.
And that begins to gain the confidence that you can handle life. that you can handle anything that comes, no matter
Yes.
how obstructed things are.
It's almost like the mind is so quick. It's like a millisecond of change of thought when I'm not careful with it. Because I remember yesterday when I was so busy and everything's so difficult, like it just slips into that. I don't know, dukkha maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe doubt. I mean, doubt is also dukkha, I guess. But yeah, it just slipped, and then it's almost like in that moment, momentarily, I just really forgotten about the practice. It's just so quick, and I feel like I was there for hours. I mean, it's all habits, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be aware of it, and it's. I mean, I know it's all habit, but in that moment, it really feels like this is me. Like, I feel like this identification of, oh, okay, this is how I am. I mean, the mind just latch onto it so quickly and it just refuse to let go. And it's just only when I start breathing, as you said, and for some reason, and then suddenly, oh, it's gone. I don't know. It's crazy.
You can get that confidence. You can do it.
Yes,
You talk to DJ, and DJ has got that confidence. He knows he can do it,
I feel that. Yes,
and you can do it. You can also gain that confidence by practicing. Remember,
yes,
you didn't drown yesterday, and you're not going to drown today.
yes, yes.
That you can learn to dog paddle, and pretty soon you'll be swimming with ease.
Dhammarato, I have, I'm not sure if Buddhism addressed this. It's on the idea of procrastination. Um, I I feel like it's less of a problem nowadays when I become very aware. Well, sometimes someday I'm not, but I try my best to being really aware of what I should do today and all this. I feel that because of being aware, I don't feel a tendency to escape the present moment. Because I feel like when I escape, when I'm not in present moment, that's when I suffer the most. That being said, I don't know. Actually, to be honest, I'm not really. I feel like this question in itself can also be a form of like I want more, but actually the practice is already slowly bringing me there, so I just have to be
Hmm.
patient.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting word that you use, procrastination. Let's investigate that for a little bit.
Yes.
All right. Normally, the word procrastination is used, let us say, in relationship to a third party, a third person, or you've got
Yes.
yourself, you've got the situation, and then you've got an observer from the outside.
Yes.
And they use words like procrastination in the way of using the word lazy.
Yes.
All right. Now, the point about procrastination from the Buddha's context, the Buddha does not see the art or the actual state of procrastination as a negative, the way that the word procrastination is used. And
Yes.
the way that I would start it off is by saying that sometimes people will act without assurance. They'll do
Mm.
it because they're supposed to do it. You've
Yes.
heard the example, or you've heard the expression of let a sleeping dog lie. Well, the procrastinator will kick a sleeping dog.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Now, the right thing to do is to not kick the dog,
Mhm.
but to step over it.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. So the point that I'm making is that procrastination in the Dhamma is not a bad thing at all.
Mm, mm,
That
mm.
procrastination means that you're taking the time to investigate so that you'll know what action actually should be done, and that you can do that action happily with the assurance that this is what needs to be done, and that we're happily up to the task.
Yes, happily after the test.
Happily up to the task, but where procrastination is normally seen is, I don't want to do it. I'm procrastinating because I don't want to do it. And the other reason is procrastination is because I don't know what to do. I'm in doubt. Well, if we're in doubt, then procrastination is the right thing to do. To do nothing is better than doing the wrong thing.
Yes,
And
yes.
so don't see procrastination as a negative thing. Another way that you can think of it is I'm going to rest right now. I can just take a rest. I'll do it later. I'll figure it out later. Very, very few things are an emergency, and yet we've been taught in our society that everything's an emergency. Everything needs to be done right now. It's a life or death situation. We need CPR,
You
right?
really feel like that, yeah.
Okay. We need to call an ambulance. And in fact, things are not that bad.
Yes.
Okay. So, what we need then to do is to take that opportunity to make an evaluation, to do an investigation. And an investigation is not just a quick look, an investigation is a real examination, sort of like a physical exam. You examine things to make sure that you know what it is that needs to be done, and then you can do that easily and happily. Oh, this is all that needs to be done. But
Yes.
mostly people will get into a panic
Yes.
and do the wrong thing because they don't want to put it off. They want to not procrastinate. Also are trying to avoid being called a procrastinator.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's better to slow things down, to take a good, strong, healthy look at it, and then proceed with caution.
Yes. Yes.
And so, examining our own thoughts and recognizing what's going on and seeing these things as obstructions, and now we can act wholesomely. Oh, there's nothing to it. Oh, never mind. No reason to get uptight because the check is late. It'll be here.
Yes.
I've been on Social Security now for nearly 15 years, and I haven't ever missed a check. So there's no
Yes.
reason to say, oh no, the check is late. Oh, poor me. Oh, anxiety town. No. So, in that regard, let's start procrastinating how we feel.
Mm, mm.
Let's slow things down and see the reality of the situation so that we can act accordingly, just like back to that door sill, that we know that
Yes.
we can get over that sill. But see, when we get into a hurry, that's when we're more than likely going to trip and fall.
Mm. I
So
also
procrastination is the way to go.
I see that now.
I'm a
I
big
also,
fan of procrastination.
a skillful kind, I guess. Because I think the problem back then was I always had an unskillful kind of procrastination because I was not aware, as you said, I wasn't paying attention to what's causing me to worry, what's causing me to avoid certain things. It's all about because I lack the skills of being aware. And I feel like nowadays that less of a case now. But yeah, I agree too. I need to really discern that there's a lot of good things about procrastination because it done skillfully. Yes.
That we often act out of fear
Yes.
instead of acting out of wisdom because we've done a good investigation and examination. People
Yes.
do that with their health. They'll have a niggle, or let us say a cold or a stuffy nose or something like that, and they'll immediately jump on a medicine. Where in fact the medicine may be the wrong medicine. They're not helping things at all.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's better to slow down, do an investigation, evaluation, an examination so that we'll know what's the right medicine, what's the right remedy for whatever ails us.
Yes. I also sometimes see the door still bigger than it actually is. I think it's born out of
Mm-hmm.
delusion or something. Which
Right.
yeah, it's quite
Yes.
small.
You've heard the expression is when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Oh, yes, 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 that's really my situation. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so that we recognize through investigation, no, we've got more tools than just a hammer. That in
Mm.
fact, it's really, really hard to get rid of a fly with a hammer.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I mean, it's just so funny thinking about it. Yes. I feel like I'm laughing at myself.
Good. That's exactly what we're doing is that we're learning to laugh and enjoy the knowledge that we see through the fact that we can investigate, we can make an examination, and then we can say, ha ha, I see that now. The Buddha had the expression, aha, I see you, Mara. Aha,
Yes.
I can see that. And so begin to enjoy that you can see all the little things that used to keep you miserable because you couldn't see them. You weren't paying attention.
Yes. Anapanasati.
All right. Well, why don't we end this conversation now and you go reflect upon these things and think about them and start practicing in them. And we'll
Yes,
talk
I
to you
will.
later. I'm
Okay,
really
thank you.
happy to know you. You're a good
Yeah,
friend,
really,
Ivan.
thank you, Dhammarato.
All
I'll
righty.
see you.
Okay. Well, we'll see you.